Yeah. Okay, let's begin here. We're still holding Siman Sadichet Sif Hey. This is a very difficult seif. It may not appear to be, but unless you've done your homework, it's not so simple. But before we delve into seif Hey, I just want to review one or 2 points from the Ramah that we left from where we left behind in seif Dalet, regarding an Isser that falls into a Gedera, to the same Gedera twice, or if that Isser went on to fall in additional Gederas. In other words, it fell either in the first scenario twice in the same Gedera, in the same pot, or it had fallen in one pot, and later on it had fallen in additional pots. So what was the Ramah? The Ramah said about that if it falls into the same Gedera twice, or more actually, it's not a problem. All you need is Misharim, Mishishim, all you need is 60 times against the Isser that fell in. Right? It fell in, you took it out, it somehow fell in again. All you need is 60 times Keneged Kuloi. No, again, it fell into the pot, later on it fell into the same pot. All you need is 60 times against the piece that fell in. You don't need to figure out more than that. Whereas in the other scenario, it falls into one pot, we're machmir, of course, and then we're machmir again in every single pot. Why don't you just say some of the Isser is gone? Some of the Isser was niflat in the first pot, it was already misbatel, it was already being cancelled out. So we explain that the difference is that in the first scenario, where it falls in more than once, it's memanav shach asur. I mean, there's no more plita than the actual Isser in itself. As the Shulchan Aruch explains, I mean, if that's how much Isser you have, then if it's bottled the first time, it's bottled. So what difference does it make if it falls again later on? Except for the possibility that one may claim, well, once it falls in, then you have chanan. Right? That's a question, that's a point that is raised, that perhaps you have chanan. But we're not machmir ad kedei kach. There are various explanations given. The Gra gives his own explanation as to why we do not say chanan in that scenario where it fell in more than once. Either way, it would be an extra chumrah, especially if we're talking about anyway b'shar isurim, we don't say chanan. It would be too much of a chumrah to say, the first time it's okay, but from now on it's going to be asur because of chanan. Once it's batal, it's batal. In the second scenario, is you have the Isser that fell in once, it was batal in the first pot. Yeah. Because you did have the quantity, the amount that you need. Then it fell into additional pots. Pot number 2, pot number 3. In each one of those, after the beetle of the first pot, because the first pot just happened to have enough to be mevatalet. You still need an amount of shishim to be mevatalet every single time it falls into the additional pots. Even though it was already batal, because the simple reason is, as the Shulchan explains, is that we don't know if all the Isser came out the first time around. Maybe there's still some Isser left. So each time you have to figure the maximum because we don't know how much. Okay, so that's an important difference between falling into the same pot versus falling in other pots. That's the Ramah, where we left off from Siman Siv Dalet.
It's kind of a strange Chanan.
Right. Shari Surim, right.
So,
but here we would not be makpid, we would not be so machmir to claim Hanan in the same pot.
yeah,
If you have 60, you don't have Hanan.
yeah,
Right, since you already have 60 the first time, so you don't really have to, right? Even though once it has come out, the piece of Isser was taken out, was removed, and became Asr. Okay? What is that?
It was Be'ain.
It was Bain, right? It was Bolea, okay? The Isser, right? Now you may claim Hanan in a situation where there may be Hanan, right? That in other words, it falls in again that you would need. You would need perhaps now against the entire. You would have to figure out against the entire. Right. So the Shulchan explains, and the Gra also has his own hesber of why here we're not so makbi to say Hanan that need twice. Now, remember the case of Kaf Choleves in Basar B'Cholov. For those of you who learned Basar B'Cholov, where you have a scenario of sticking in the spoon twice, and there you actually have two opinions. You have the Mechaber and the Ramah. where the Mechaber seems to be saying you would need 62 times because of Hanan. But that's very simple, because in Basar B'cholav, the Mechaber holds the concept, he goes along with the idea that there is Hanan. But the Mechaber doesn't go along with the Hanan in Shar Yisurim. So therefore the Ramah, in Basar B'cholav, in Tzadik Daled, says even though we usually go with the Shita, the Hanan is applicable B'Shar Yisurim, as the Shach explains the words of the Ramah, over there he's not Machmir. Why? Because we can rely on Shitas that there's no Hanan in Isur HaBalua. Okay, even if you hold Hanan B'Shar Yisurim, there's a difference between Hanan in the real piece of meat or whatever, the Isur, versus Hanan to claim Hanan in Isur HaBalua in the Keli, in the Kdera, in the walls of the Keli. That's something that we'll be talking about today a lot. Do we say that or not? So I'm already letting you know in advance. That's how the Shach explains there in Basar B'cholav. You can be soymech, you can rely that there's no Hanan in Isur HaBalua. And therefore, that is why the Ramah in that case says you don't need more than once, 60 times.
Oh, is that what you're saying?
No, there's no Hanan in the spoon.
The spoon.
In the spoon, right, in the Kli. Right.
He doesn't hold Blios.
In the Isur HaBalua. He does hold that there is Hanan in Blios. But he says over there you can be Mekel. In that scenario where it was the spoon going in twice, he says, it's questionable, but you don't have to be Machmer. Even though we hold, like some of the Shitas that hold that there is Hanan in Blias, not everybody does. And we'll talk a little bit about what the Machlokes is. So in that case, in Basar B'cholav, of sticking in a Kaf Choleves twice, he says, we are noiheg not to be machmer in such a case. Now, imagine somebody sticking it in, then he went to do something else, and then he stuck it in again. He went on mixing or whatever. You wouldn't need more. The Mechaber says you would. The Ramah says we're not noiheg to require twice the 60. So, Mimon Shach, you have the 60 neged the Isur the first time around, right? It's just that lo noida, right? In that case, you didn't have any stop in between the two times. It was one after another. So I would think perhaps you do need it. So the Ramah says we're not so machmir over there.
Is lo noida falls in the same?
Yeah, here it wouldn't make a difference whether it's noida or not noida. It doesn't make a difference. Remember, here we're talking about also potentially other isurim. As far as the Mechaber is concerned, of course. Here the Mechaber doesn't say it, but that's what the Mechaber would hold. It doesn't apply because Shar Yisurim, there's no Hanan. But over there, it's Basar B'cholav.
So let's say you have two parts and you on the spoon, and the second part. How does that?
That's our situation here, right? That even though it fell in, it actually fell in, not that you stuck it in, right? It fell in, and then you took it out, and then it fell into another pot. So I would think perhaps part of it was bottle. Maybe you don't need as much. After all, how do we start off in Seif Dalet? We start off in Seif Dalet that sometimes you may be able to. That's actually Seif Hey. Seif Hey.
We haven't actually read Seif Hey.
That's right. In Seif Hey, we will see that there are situations where if you know in advance how much the Isser is, that's all that is required. If you happen to know, that is why I'm reviewing the Ramah, because the Ramah is a little bit tied into what we're going to see in Seif Hey. In other words, sometimes it may be possible to know how much I actually, if I know the real amount of Isser that is Balua in the Keli. Otherwise, usually we're Meshar against either the whole spoon or half the spoon, depending how you hold. If you hold according to the sheet of Cham Mitzosacham Kuloi, then it's the entire spoon. If not, then it's sufficient, just the portion of the spoon that went in. Yeah, so that's why I wanted to review that point, that we understand clearly the difference between here and Basar B'cholav is that over there it's Basar B'cholav, according to the Mechaber. Ramah, of course, says there is Hanan in Shar Yisurim, and there's Hanan in Blias too, according to the Rashba. But in that case of Kaf Cholev sticking it twice, he says we can rely on those that say there's no Hanan Isra Balua. But when you're talking about other pots, you always have this issue of maybe there's still some Isser left behind. Yeah.
It's weird that he says
And
another pot
well,
is different than the same pot.
Yeah, because in the same pot, once you were mevatel it, you were mevatel it.
Part,
Either it's bottle or it's not.
intuitively,
Right.
why would remain in the pot for 10 minutes? It's the Isser.
Right.
Now let's say after 5 minutes I returned it back inside.
Right.
Why would the fact that I removed it and returned require 120? Intuitively, it makes sense that I should eat twice the
Right.
amount.
That's what the Aruch HaShulchan
Now,
says.
when I transfer it to a different pot, the reason, idealistic reason, not because of the physicality, for a formalistic meaning that why do I Bechal need the whole thing because I don't know how
That's
much
correct.
Elias is in. So when it goes into a new pot, I no longer have the excuse. It's the same thing as though it had remained.
Right.
So now I have to look at it and say, I still don't know how much Elias remained in it, so I have to go the worst case scenario, which would be the whole thing. It never released anything into the
That's
first pot.
correct.
So
Right.
now it's releasing everything here. So that's my... the reason.
You've quoted almost verbatim the words of the Aruch HaShulchan. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the difference. Yeah, that's the difference. Yeah.
Quick,
Okay.
I don't know if it's a good time to
All right,
say
go
it
ahead.
because you give an introduction.
Right.
And I found it very confusing on Sunday.
Okay.
And I don't know if we hold by the way the Badash explains it. So I wanted to
But you know what? Before you tell me about the Bada Shulchan, maybe we should review
just a look quickly.
the Seif the way I prepared it.
Oh, okay, sure.
No. I'll tell you why. Because
No problem.
you'll see what I went through.
Okay.
This is a very unusual Seif.
Yeah.
Okay, Seif Hay is very, very unusual, and you'll see why in a moment. I want to share with you exactly what I went through, just to figure everything out, to make sure that we understand everything clearly. Okay, but before we go on, just a couple more points to keep in mind, based on what we've already covered, that a kaf, sticking in a kaf, a spoon into the tafshil, it is important to make the following distinction. If the kdeira is a klirishan or a klisheni, now we're eventually going to be talking about various levels of heat. This is also important in Hilchos Shabbos. When we talk about the scenario that sticking in a kaf poses a problem, it's only if it's a klirishan, whether it's ala eish or not ala eish. Klirishan shayat soledet bo. So it's boiling hot, pretty much. Well, very, very hot. Okay? And because of that, even though you've removed it from the fire, you've taken it off from the stove, put it down, it's still a klirishan, the original klirishan, right? Now you're taking a spoon, Melicha spoon or fresh, depending on what the dish is, it will be a problem. Kli sheni, even if it's yad soledes bo, the chochmas odom, which is another good sefer, type of a kisa Shulchan Aruch in Yore Deah, says that it's not really a problem, which is interesting. And it's important to know that. Because if you pour this stew, or whatever it is, into a bowl, everybody's eating dinner right now, and they put you the settings, the wrong fork and knife or whatever it is, right, of the other kind, then wait a minute, this is a kli sheni, it's not a kli rishon.
How about the cleats?
Makes no difference. No.
But that was
Yeah.
but that's exposed to Iroi.
No. I'm talking about once it's in a kli sheni. Once it's in a kli
already
sheni.
in
Right.
dish.
Right.
But the dish itself might be
Maybe. Yeah.
of Iroi. Can they keep on?
Kli sheni is not mevashal. That's the rule, and therefore it would not be usher here. You have a Melicha spoon, and you have a dish, a pot, a bowl, or whatever that is a kli sheni. It wouldn't be a problem. Even if it's yad soledes, exactly. Now, what about if the pot, that we're talking about the same situation that we have, spoon into a pot, the pot is on the fire, but it's not hot.
It's on fire.
But it's not hot yet, it hasn't heated up. It's on fire. Right. So it's similar. We briefly mentioned that before. If somebody just began the cook process, even though it's on the fire, this could happen too. Then I think the Chochmas Odom says if it's a dova yovish, you just take off a klipa, take off a little bit. If it's a liquid, you don't have to worry about it, even if you don't have shish. It's not hot. That's it. It's not an issue yet. Another point is...
Excuse me. What does it mean exactly? Is it klipa?
Took off a little bit
from
from
the
the...
fire, just from the top?
Yeah, from the top. Take off a little bit of whatever it is that... Yeah, because wherever the spoon touched, a little bit. Obviously, it would depend on the type of food. Another detail is with sticking in a spoon that we said about the chamik tzos cham kuloi, how much do I have to figure, how much of the spoon. The issue that the Mechaber brings concerns only a cold kaf. What if it would be a hot spoon?
5 you're saying is the cold?
No, before we get to 5, I'm still talking about 4.
Okay.
Seif Dalet. What if it's a hot spoon? Remember we said that kaf shel isur beheter, tochev kaf shel isur beheter, tzorich shishim keneged kol agdero keneged kol ma shetochav mehakaf, against whatever amount of spoon you put in. She'enanu yodim kama bolo ben shem shel cheres or eitzom, regardless of the material. We do not know how much they absorbed, but we do know one thing. You don't have to figure against the entire spoon, according to the Mechaber. The second opinion is Rabbeinu Peretz, which he also brings down in Basar b'chalav, the chamik tzosacham kuloi, the entire spoon, therefore figure out against the whole spoon. So it is brought down that this is only true with a cold spoon. The Pri Megadim, the Rabbi Kiva I saw, the Chavas Das, they say that if the spoon is hot, then it's mefa'apeh bekuloi. And in order to understand this, you remember the seif, the halacha in Basar b'chalav about a tipa, ilan falling on the gdeira?
Sure. Place where there it is cooking.
Lo shelo keneged harotev. Not opposite the liquid. Somewhere on top. Okay, remember that? Yeah. Keneged hareika, very good. What do we say over there? We say over there that it could be a problem over there. What's the problem? Because the tipa there is mefa'apeh. It can't spread. It's a suffix, but we're machmir. It's a suffix that it is mefa'apeh, and it doesn't go so far as going down to the rotev. Because had it gone down to the rotev, it wouldn't be a problem, right? But it may not. It may just go right before the rotev, before the sauce. So what does it do to the keli? It makes the keli chanan. Exactly. That's what's important to remember, because we're going to be learning that. In that scenario, we're only talking about chanan in blias, not chanan in the actual walls of the gdeira. The Mechaber, and according to some Ramah too, would not hold that there's chanan in the wall. There's chanan in the blias over there. It's about it's true. Not everybody holds like that. Right.
Blias in the wall,
the wall becomes basar b'chalav, and that's where you have to wait till it cools down. Remember that?
The wall becomes
I'm sorry, very good. The blias become basar b'chalav.
In the wall.
In the wall. All right?
But you can't separate the wall.
Right.
No. The substance of the wall. The metal of the wall doesn't become.
Does not.
It's only the absorptions of the wall.
And we're going to make that distinction soon. Now, so therefore, what do we see from there? In that situation, everything is hot. And that is why we say that. Over there it spreads. Here we don't say that. Here, Mechaber says there are some who hold chamik tzos cham kul. Over there's no argument. Why not? You understand the difference? What's the difference between there and here? Why here? Why don't we say mefa'apeh bekuloi? You're sticking in the spoon. That's because you stuck in a cold spoon. If you stuck in a hot spoon, the Pri Megadim would say it is mefa'apeh bekuloi, and you would need against the whole spoon.
I asked you about before then. I asked the difference between the spoon, which is in terms of 4, against the 60 liter against the
yes, the gdeira is isur.
I asked it, is that the whole thing gets
Yes,
hot?
and as we explained, I think you had to leave then. The gdeira, we talked about the similar situation where the gdeira is obviously under fire. So the gdeira gets all hot, it's mefa'apeh. The whole thing, so the isur travels. So that's the difference. It's similar to the basar b'chalav situation of tipa in the reikon. Now, so the Pri Megadim, everybody, the Rabbi Elyahu, they all hold that it would be usur completely. In other words, the whole spoon would be taken into consideration if it's hot. And the Mechaber situation is where it's cold. Chochmas Adam does not distinguish between cold and hot spoon. The crazy place he adds that when we're talking about a spoon that was hot, it's only because if it was hot from before. You were mixing something else, it was already hot on its own. Not that it became hot now. Because obviously at some point it could become hot too, if you hold it long enough. So what the Mechaber is speaking about here, according to the way Crazy Place explains, is obviously a cold spoon. But had it been a hot spoon, it would have had to be hot from before, not become hot as a result of mixing the contents of the Just a few little ideas that maybe you would want to know how all of these can make a difference if you have a situation at home where your balabasta, begins to stir with a spoon that is hot because she was making chocolate milk. Huh?
Why does it make a difference if it became hot already, even if it gets hot while you're stirring? No?
The crazy place he says that the blias of the other blias that the spoon had have already spread because it was hot. It's all over now. Right now, as you're mixing, it can become hot, but maybe we don't say that it travels all the way up. Don't spread, perhaps. He makes that distinction. Yeah. Anyway, let's go on to Sif Hay. Oh, very good. Yeah. Okay, let's go into Sif Hay now. Listen very, very carefully. If you read the Mechaber plain, without any meforshim, no shach, no taz, nothing, it should read very simple. And I'm going to do that now. Im yodua kama hua iser, right? The reason why we need Shishin, the Mechaber says all along, is because we don't know. How much fell in, how much is in spoon, how much is in ikdera. If you have a scenario where you can know the actual amount of the milk or the meat, then it should make things easy. Im yodua kama hua iser. Kegoin, kaf chadosho, a new spoon. Or she'eno bas yoima. All right? Or that it was not used during that day. What's a kaf chadosho? A new spoon. It has just been used now. One time. Right before I mixed it into the meat, I have a kaf chadosho that was used once for milk. All right? That's kaf chadosho. Or she'eno bas yoima means what? It means that I've used it before, many times perhaps, but it's not a bas yoima anyway. Therefore what? Therefore any other bliyas that might be in this kaf are irrelevant. And I'm only concerned with the bliyah of today. Alright? That's what he means by eno bas yoima. Shenir bo, that he mixed with it, ubalo kazayis cholov. And it absorbed a kazayis of cholov. So this is the kaf chadosha, right? Or the kaf that is old, but today it absorbed a kazayis. I know all it absorbed was a kazayis cholov. That's all it was. And after that, you went ahead and mixed some goulash. Right? All you need is 60 times against the kazayis of cholov that was absorbed today. Simple. Then you have in parentheses something that has nothing to do with what he says supposedly, because it's not. There's no connection. What's the pashup shot of the parenthesis? Just in case what was absorbed in the spoon was an iser, a real iser, I would not apply the concept of chanan to a keli itself, to the walls of the keli. There's no such thing. Why is he telling this to me? Why? Don't think that even though there's only kazayis, maybe there is chanan in the keli. And even though it's ben yoima, maybe I still need a greater portion to be mevatel here because of chanan. No, it says, don't worry about that.
There are opinions that do that.
There are very few. Yeah. Don't think that we have to concern ourselves about chanan in the keli itself. That does not exist, according to this. Therefore, if you actually know how much was absorbed in the spoon, you're safe. That's all you need to be mevatel. How could that ever happen? Either in a kaf chadosha, or she'ena bas yoima. Everybody agrees with this, by the way, scenario. And that's what the Mechaber seems to be learning in the first portion, the first part of the seif. So what is he adding what's being added in the parenthesis? What's being added in the parenthesis? Rama, in the words of the Mechaber, that's the difference. Not his own opinion, but his explanation in the words of the Mechaber is that I would not have to concern myself about chanan in the keli itself. That's the only thing that the Mechaber does not mention, but I'm just letting you know that he says, in case you thought that this might be an issue. It's not. In other words, possibly you could sometimes not need shishim against the whole thing, not even this part that went inside. All you need is a kazais. Against the kazais, that was the maximum that was absorbed, because you know that in advance. Very simple, very easy. Right. Only 60 against the kazais, but not more than that.
Just because if it was in the walls of the pot when the milk was then you wouldn't know how much bleos of the other stuff was in there. You know what 60? You wouldn't 60 times then. No.
Yeah.
Is that correct? No. You know the kazayas and milk. What's in there other than the milk?
In what?
In the pot, for example. Eat bleos in the pot or something like that, and put kazayas and milk in there or something. Then you don't know. I mean, what's the nafkamina? The nafkamina is that you're going to need 60 times. You're going to need a lesser amount to bottle the milk because the kazayas, you know what it is.
You know the exact amount that it absorbed.
Yeah,
right.
But what's the alternative? Is
you need against the whole amount of the kaf.
The spoon.
Or the spoon, the kedera.
Right.
Depending what you're dealing with.
Right.
What
This is like pashut. The only reason you would even come up in the other is you don't know the other blias would be on the other side.
You don't know how many blias there were.
Yeah, like those.
Exactly.
So
either meat or dairy blias. Right.
So, but when you don't have anything else in there,
that's all. Yeah, it makes it easy. That's the chiddush so far. That's the first chiddush of Sif Hey. That there are times that you don't need 60 against a whole kedera, 60 against a whole calf. You need 60 against an amount that you know for a fact, the substance, as you would call it, was there in reality. Ikazais, that's all was there. I don't need more than that. Okay. Aval kaf yeshono, an old calf, ubas yoma, and it has to be a bas yoma because a kaf yeshono that has many blias, regardless of what they are, but it's not bas yoma, then it's tam lefgam. It's irrelevant. Okay. So it's a kaf yeshana. Now what does a kaf yeshana mean? An old spoon. What does an old spoon mean? It means a spoon that has poshup pshat, that has absorbed many blias. It has been used more than once. And it was even used today many times.
One time.
Huh?
Even one?
No.
What? If I don't know how much.
it just has to be used one time before the milk goes in.
Right. I don't know how many blias there are. That's what he wants to say. Right now, he wants to tell us a situation where I don't know how many blias there are. Why don't I know? Because this is a kaf yeshana, which means it's not the first time I use it. I've used it more than once today.
That's why you see how many blios.
And therefore, I don't know how many blias there are.
Here's an interesting question.
And it's today. So there's no tam lefgam.
Many times in the same. Many times.
I've used it today several times. I've used it several times today. Yeah. I've used it several times. So, in other words, I don't know how many blias there are. Very simple. It wasn't a one-time thing. Right. So I can't use this. So right, avakaf yeshona ubas yoma, misharin bekula. Then you have to do the whole thing. Why? Because I don't know how many blias there are. Very simple. But look at this. Look at the parenthesis. This is where things begin to throw you off. The kol mashebola, everything that it absorbed, nase isur or chanan, velo yadinu kama bola. Just tell me, because I don't know how many blias it has. What is this explanation here in the words of the Mechaber? The kol mashebola nase isur. Everything that it has absorbed has become usur. This does not make any sense whatsoever. It's the Ramah's explanation of the Mechaber.
So it's the Ramah speaking.
Of the Mechaber. If you read this, I guarantee you, without Taz, without the Darche Moshe, you cannot figure this one out. Can you tell me?
I don't know. I must be mistaken.
No. Can you tell me just by reading the words of the Mechaber? What is he talking about? The scenario is very simple. The way he reads, if it's a new spoon just used once, or if it's not a new spoon but it's it's Eino Ben Yomo, all I need to figure out is, do I have shishim keneged the kazais that it absorbed? Simple. Great. I don't need to figure out against the entire spoon or kedera that is in. Good. This is one of those situations where I have a way to figure out based on an amount that I know. I don't have to use a round number of shishim keneged the whole thing, right? This is one of those situations where I happen to know the exact amount of isser, or the exact amount of milk, or the exact amount of meat. I don't need to guess. There's no guesswork. I don't need a kapela. I don't need 60 against this. Very simple. Everybody agrees with this.
Yeah.
The problem is the second point,
But
where
doesn't
things
the first-
become more complicated.
Why doesn't the first one imply? The first point that you just said imply one?
I would agree.
Why is it so
Look at the parenthesis. That's what throws everything off. What does Hanan have to do with this? What does Hanan? The Ramah, if you look at the Beis Yosef, you're really thrown off because there he actually explains it much more than just this one line. He starts talking about there's Hanan in case of a kaf yeshana.
This is he talking about it there? It's Hanan, but if it's Isser.
Yeah, but 1 second. No, 1 second. Poshet Shad, you're reading the Mechaber. You want to understand what's his scenario. He says, I have an idea for you, he says here. I have a scenario for you. You know, we've been talking about Shishin Keneged the spoon, Chamik, Tzotze, Cham Kulu, the entire spoon, half the spoon. Okay. But if you know the Isser amount, you can just figure out against the Isser. That's only true with a Kaf Chadosha or She'enu Bas Yoma. Okay? All you did was absorb a kazais. So Shishin Keneged Isser. Now look at what he says later. Aval Kaf Yeshono. But if it's an old spoon, meaning what? That you've used it numerous times. That's what it, doesn't that mean?
within the last 24 hours?
Exactly, that's what it means, right? Okay, what did I use it for, by the way? What was this kaf yeshona used for? Milk, not meat, not meat.
They put in meat.
Aha, right. It's wrong. Poshup shot, it's wrong. They're right because of the mechaber, because of the Beis Yosef. But it's not right. I'm reading it like this, listen. Im yodua kamo iser, kegon kaf chadosha, sheinu bas yom, shenir bo ubolo kazayis cholov. Is it a milk spoon or a meat spoon? What did it absorb? A kazayis cholov.
I've always meat spoon because I'm
Why?
use it for meat.
I'm going to use it now to
Yeah.
mix a meat kedera.
So normally the Mechaber, when he talks about a milk spoon, he says a spoon that is milky.
No, but he says,
But not a spoon that bala milk. He would say milky.
but what's the problem here? The problem here is going to be mixing it ve'achakach nir b'kedera shel basar.
Right.
All right. If you go back to Seif Dalet, toichev kaf shel iser beheter. Take a kaf shel iser. Okay, kaf shel iser. Treif. It's treif, and I put it in heter. All right. All you need is in that opinion is against the portion of the kaf that went in. Now comes along the mechaber and says, well, wait a minute, I have some news for you. If you know, in Yadur Kama Huay Isser, forget about Basar B'cholav now. If I know the amount of Isser, Kaf Chadosho, it was once used for treif. It should be the same, halacha. Osha Eina Bas Yoma, but it was used, Shanir Bo, Bolaba Kazais, Isser. He says Cholav. So he's talking about a dairy spoon. This spoon was used once, it absorbed kazayis cholov, but achakach nir bokder shel basar. Why should I think that this is a fleishik spoon?
In 5 now, you're right?
Yeah.
You're talking about a spoon, the first part you're talking about?
Yeah. Can you tell me from reading this halacha, what would you say if it's a dairy spoon or a meat spoon? Are you reading the English or the Hebrew?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. So then you can't tell. All right. Yeah. Let me tell you what the Mechaber says. All right, if we know how much the Isser is, and on that day, you took a spoon, Shanir bo ubalab kazais cholav. You mixed with it, and it absorbed a kazais of cholav.
Yeah.
Is it a dairy spoon or a meat spoon?
Now it became a dairy spoon if it's a new spoon. When it was used to
If it's
mix
new,
milk,
if it's new,
and through mixing the milk. Now
it's
it
a
became
dairy spoon.
Now it became dairy.
Right.
It was dairy before.
Okay, that's if it's
And
new.
assume the pot that
Yeah.
the milk is in.
It's meat. The pot is meat.
The first part?
No.
The first part is a dairy pot with milk in
No,
it.
no, no,
and
no.
The spoon that goes in is a new gets
No, but the
dairy.
pot is meat. It says veneer bo, shanir bo.
The first part?
Yes,
the
yes.
second time the spoon used, not when it was used the milk.
No. The spoon absorbed the kazayis cholav. Is it a dairy spoon or a meat spoon? It's a dairy spoon.
And the kazais of pot must have been hot. And
Right.
the pot in which it was cooked was a dairy pot, not a meat pot.
No, the original pot.
Yeah, that's what-
Yes. I'm sorry. Yes,
That's the first case.
that's where it absorbed the spoon, the meat, the milk. Yes,
So
it's
you know how
dairy.
much- yeah.
and I know it's a kazais. All right, what did he do with that dairy spoon? Sheni ahakach nir bok dera shel basar.
Spoon, dairy spoon.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah. All you need, ein tzorech el shishim levatel a kazais shebolo. All you need is 60 times against the kazais.
Well, no. Now you're saying. Wait. Can you just translate the whole thing? Read the whole
Yeah.
first part of it.
All right, one more time. What have we said till now? By the way, before you know what, let me make one additional point clear that I think you may have had a question about. What's the difference between this mechaber, this halacha, and basar b'chalav? You had something about the difference between these two. Depending if you read the Torah or the mechaber, because many times the mechaber basically goes along with the Torah. He actually quotes the lashon of the Torah. Here he doesn't exactly quote the lashon of the Torah. What is happening? What's the difference between the scenarios here and in basar b'chalav is as follows. There, remember in Kaf Choleves, in Tzadik Daled? In Tzadik Daled, the Mechaber talks about the first seif from Tzadik Daled. Whoever inserts a dairy spoon in a pot of meat, Tochev Kaf Choleves Gder Shel Basar, or Ivcha, or the opposite, Misharim Bechol Ma Shenitcha Mimenu B'Gdera. You have to figure out against whatever was inserted into the pot. Good. And then he says the same thing he said over here. Some say you don't just figure against what was inserted, you figure against the whole thing because of cham. What's the difference between this mechaber and this mechaber?
Yeah.
What's the difference between that halacha and the halacha here? He says, if you put in the spoon, some say cham kula, some say you only figure against the amount of spoon that went in. I found one major difference. One at least important detail, additional detail. The words of the Torah are a little bit different, but the Mechaber basically says the following. In Basar b'chalav, when he tells us that whoever inserts a dairy spoon into a pot of meat, you figure against how much of the spoon went in.
Yeah.
What is he telling us there? What is the halacha that is being taught over there? That the actual figuring of shishim is keneged how much of the spoon went in, right? Look at here. If you read the words carefully, he adds a different detail.
In 4?
I already know that halacha from Basar b'chalav. What is in 4? In 4 he says, whoever inserts, if you inserted a kaf shel isur beheter, tzorech shishim keneged kol agdero keneged kol ma shetochav mehakaf, against the entire amount of the kaf that went in. And then he adds some words. He didn't say in Basar b'chalav. She'ein anu yoydin kama bolo, because I don't know how much it absorbed. That is an additional detail. Over there, he's telling me I don't need to figure against the whole spoon, Ilan, right?
Yes, right.
I only need this amount that went in, an inch,
Yes.
2 inches. Here he's telling me, you know why I have to figure out against the whole thing that went in?
It's the part that was toichet.
Of course, obviously. But why do I need the entire piece that was toichev? Why?
You don't know how many wheels.
Exactly.
You don't know
Exactly.
how many wheels.
Now he's telling me why. I know I need the 1 or 2 inches. I know from Basar b'chalav. I don't hold the mechaber says of cham mitzvos or cham kol. And I told you that in Basar b'chalav. Now I'm telling you, why do I need to begin with that entire thing? Simple, because I don't know how many blias there are.
Right.
But over there,
All he's telling me is, by the way,
He doesn't give you the.
this is as far as you
He
go.
doesn't give you the reason.
He doesn't give you the reason. Right?
But doesn't he use
He's just telling you the halacha. We don't hold cham mitzvos or cham kulo here. You only have to worry about the amount that went in.
But didn't he talk about the amount of diet and the basic?
Yeah, but 1 second. Why is he telling me we don't know about the blias? Because he's going to be telling me a scenario in hey, I know a scenario where I do know how many blias there are.
Right.
Now, if you look at the Torah says both. We don't say cham mitzvos or cham kulo. We don't know how many blias there are. But here, somehow the mechaber separated between the halacha and Basar b'chalav, and here, right here, giving an explanation about the amount of blias that I'm not aware of. There, he didn't say anything about that. He just talked about how much of the spoon. What is halacha on the spoon? The whole thing? or the amount that went in. Here he's telling me you have to figure against the entire thing that went in, because also I don't know how many blias there are.
Could it be?
Yes.
Could it be the fact that he is here
All right.
is because he's also allowing for the possibility that what was absorbed in the spoon is here.
Could be. It could be that
And
he needs to
since,
say
and
that.
since the Mechaber doesn't hold by Hana Isurim,
Right.
so he would not require against the spoon, the stoiche, because of Hanan. So he has to give you a reason why he needs against the portion of the spoon that was inserted. Over there he's talking about dairy, and he didn't tell you that it was a kazais or something.
But it's not
a dairy spoon. So
Yeah.
it was a spoon that was used for dairy. I don't know how.
But it's not a Hanan yet.
But the moment you insert it,
Oh,
then the bleed inside it acquires bleeds from the meat.
right.
That also becomes haram because of the.
Let me
bleeds
ask you a
from the milk.
question, Ilan. What happens if you stick a spoon, a dairy spoon, into cholent only once, and you took it out?
Yeah.
Is there Hanan? No.
How not?
In the spoon.
The spoon. I'm talking about the spoon.
No.
Because it doesn't apply.
No, that's not.
Okay.
That's the bleeds.
Okay, one, you only inserted it once.
Yeah, why not? Why not?
Okay. Remember in Siman Tzadik Dalet Siv Vov, the case of a tznon that was balua mi basar. Okay?
Yeah.
How much do you need 60 against the whole tznon or against the basar
The
blia?
Mechaber or the Rama? We're going with
Makes
the
no
Mechaber.
difference.
No, it doesn't make-
No, it doesn't make a difference.
The Mechaber says today.
No. You're being mishar. Betzolim or yerokos shebluim mi basar.
Yeah.
They're right. They have meat. You've cooked this onion in. It can happen.
You cooked it. I
Yeah,
thought you meant to cut it.
Yeah, you cut. No, the cutting is a different halacha. They had absorbed. They became a fleshy
Okay.
onion
Yeah.
or radish
Yeah.
or whatever it is.
Yes, no.
Ubishlo b'derech choleves im yodua kama basar balu b'ptzolim ubiyorokos ein tzorach shishim elo keneged basar. Of course, there's no chana. Why? Because it's heter bola. It's a heter. The meat is a heter.
Right.
The milk in the spoon is a heter. It only becomes chanan later on if you're going to put it in again.
No. It's a machlokes.
No. That's what Mechaber says by sticking it twice. The second time it's a problem, not the first time. The first time it's not a problem. The second time it becomes chanan.
That's right.
It has become chanan. Now I stick it in again. I have a
But
problem.
if you look at the Badei Shulchan, you'll
Yeah.
find that he doesn't make the distinction a second.
Well, it should be.
But
It's a
he
heter
tells
bola.
you as soon as the hatchila,
Yeah.
when you're sticking it in, what is going into the pot is pure milk that's not served.
Right.
Now that the spoon is in the pot, it is absorbing.
Okay.
Meat
Then the
from
second
the
time
pot.
around. The second
no,
time. Yeah.
Why not the first time?
No,
It's
no.
absorbing meat from the pot.
Right.
The meat absorption in the spoon mixes with the milk absorption.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
So that's how the Badei Shulchan explains
Yeah.
it. You need 60 against that was
Yeah,
inserted.
we're going to see that how the Beis Yosef learns a little bit different than that. That's where it becomes a little bit confusing. Once you introduce the meat and the milk and the meat and the milk more than once. But let's go back to the Seif Hey. I wanted just to share with you that the Mechaber does make that distinction over here between here and Basar B'cholot, that here we don't know how many blias there were. However, if you do know how many blias there are, it's easy.
That's
Just
the first part.
right, the first part of 5. Now, the second part of 5 says, how do you read it Pashut? Pashut, I'm reading simple Hebrew. Ava kaf yeshana. What's a kaf yeshana? I've used it more than once. I've used it numerous times. I use it numerous times for milk. Bas yoima. It was used today. Mesharin bekula. Then I have to figure out against the whole spoon. Why? Simple. Because I don't know how many blias it has. In the first case of hey, I know how much blias there are. 1 kazais. In the second case of hey, I do not know.
But I don't understand. There's nothing else through there. You're saying the spoon is just.
How much do I need? I have the meat. How much in the meat do I need to cancel out the milk? I need 60.
What milk are we talking about?
In the kaf yeshana
Coffee shana
has been used numerous times on that day
for meat.
for dairy.
For dairy.
Yes, for dairy.
And then you put.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or for meat.
Okay. So let's say.
Okay.
Let's say
All right, meat, and then use that in milk. Yeah, but
for dairy.
I'm talking about the case of the Mechaber, the way it
Good,
reads,
good, this is great.
Yeah.
So you're saying it goes in many dues for dairy.
as opposed to once. I used it once, I know how much there was. If I used it more than once, I don't know how many blias there are.
I'm saying then it goes into
Then he says, you know what we said before, Misharin Bekula? That's only if it's a Kaf Yeshon and Sabas Yoima. But in the first portion of Seif Hey, first part that I told you that you don't need Misharin Bekula, is because you only used it once and it was Kazais. So that's, in other words, when do you have a situation where you don't need Misharin Bekula? When you know for a fact, this is the only time I've used it, and this was the amount, the Kazais. Very simple.
How do you present?
You figure it out, how much was in the content. The content that you were cooking was so much, this is how much it absorbed.
So Rabbi Kin,
Yeah.
that case saying,
Yeah.
it's a new spoon in the dairy, kazayas in dairy, so that spoon you have to have a kazayas of
You need Shishin Keneged the Kazais.
for the dairy blias in the spoon.
Right.
Then too, you're saying that one is not new. It's been dumped in meat stuff a number of times.
In dairy time, in dairy.
Many
Right.
times.
Yes.
Meat or dairy?
But then it gets dumped in the other min.
In the other opposite mean. Right.
That's what you're saying.
Right.
And when you do that, then you're saying it's the whole spoon.
The whole
because-
spoon. Right. The portion of the spoon that went inside.
So if that's the case, if I think it's dumped once in
Right.
the other bin, one kazayas of meat and kazayas of milk the second time. This is what you said. That then what you're telling, then the whole spoon doesn't become.
Let's not talk about Hanan yet.
He would say yes, Chanan.
You're
Yeah,
saying-
but let's not talk about Hanan yet because I don't know yet about Hanan. All I
You
want.
don't need at the end. You just need to buckle the kazayas of.
I have a problem here. I have a dairy spoon that was used more than once, many, many times during that day.
Yeah.
I don't know how many blias it had. Now, I took this dairy spoon and I mixed it in a pot of cholent. Mixed it. I said, oh no, what do I do now? Well, do you have 60 times in the cholent connected the amount of the spoon that went inside? That's all.
Rabbi,
Either yes or no.
would it make it would use several times? Or
Right.
if I just said, I don't know, it was used once, but I don't know how much milk was there. In the first half of the problem,
Right.
I know there was a kazayas milk. Why am I saying it was used several times over? Because the several times over is just telling me that ultimately at the end of the day, I don't even know how much milk was. So just say,
I
I
have
don't know
more-
how much milk was there.
Exactly.
The same, exact same scenario.
Yes,
You
yes.
could say it was dunked once into
That's what he calls a kaf yeshona.
No, it was dunked once.
That's his terminology for kaf
But I
yeshona.
don't know how much milk was there.
Right.
Could be a kazayas, could be 10 kazayas.
That's what he's been saying all along. She'ein anu yodim kama bolo in Seif Daled. He says, why do I have to be mishar on the whole thing? Because I don't know
Right.
how much blias it has.
And for that, it doesn't necessarily have to have been inserted several times over. One time would be enough if I don't know how much.
That's true too.
And the reason
Even
I'm
one
pointing
time
it
if
out-
I don't know how much. Yes.
If it is the same, that would take care of our problems. Was it used for meat before, for milk before? It was used once for milk.
But I don't know how
don't know
much. That's correct. I
Is what they're not saying that it was used once for, let's say, milk.
for dairy, but I don't know how much was in the
One
pot.
time, and then it goes into meat.
Yes, it's the same kind because what's the common denominator? I don't know how much blias it has.
So what would be
So the
case if you
mechaber
did
is
know how much in the meat?
that's what mechaber is saying. You know what we've said till now that we have to figure 60 against the spoon, the half a spoon or whatever, because I don't know how many blias it has.
Yeah.
I just don't know. I used it many times. I used it once, and I don't know how much was there. I just don't know. But if I do know, great. Figure out against the amount that was absorbed in the spoon. You're allowed to.
What if it's a ben yomo meat spoon, and then you put it in dairy, and you know it's a kazayas milk? Nothing's not known. It's all known. What the whole thing or the part?
No,
or that we do kazayas.
if I know how much isur there is in the spoon,
Even if it's an old spoon.
yeah, if I happen to know somehow how much isur there is, all I need is 60 times the isur. I don't have to measure the spoon.
Okay, fine.
You see, have to assume
No.
60 times the volume, never know.
Or usually you don't know. That's what the
Doesn't
mechaber
matter
says.
whether it's hot or dairy, whether it's
Yeah, the mechaber says, you know what we've been saying till now, that you have to be mishai b'shishim against spoons. We've talked about it in Basar b'challah. We talked about it here. That's only because I don't know how many blias it has. But if I gave you a scenario where I do know, just figure out this spoon absorbed 1 ounce of milk. That's all there was. That's all there was in this whatever I was cooking. 1 ounce, 2 ounce. I know the amounts in ounces or in whatever, right? Milliliters. I know the amount. Then all I need is shishim connected that amount.
Provided it's not on the same day.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Yeah,
I'm
we'll get
saying,
it.
we have to-
But I'm reading the mechaber simple.
Yeah, but But my question is, what if it then goes into a meat?
Right.
And you know there's a kazayas meat there.
No, forget about the meat. It doesn't make a difference. In the meat, when it goes into the meat, I want to know if that meat, I can eat that meat. Can I eat the meat right now?
Okay.
Can I eat that meat right now?
Okay, fine. I got it.
And the answer is, if there's shishim in the meat, can I get that
Okay.
1 kazayas or whatever, 1 ounce? Then the answer is yes, I could eat the meat.
That's the whole issue.
That's the whole issue. If I read the mechaber, that's all he's saying.
Kazayas or whether will
Right.
determine whether or not the meat.
Right.
When it has to, it's really difficult because when it has to put the whole thing together. In other words, if I'm only going to 60 against the kazais of milk, that's only true under the condition that it's a new spoon or wasn't used within the 24-hour period for anything else.
Yes.
But if I don't have these two conditions, then knowing that it was used for kazais of milk on the last time doesn't help me. Because if it was used several times or one more time during the same day and I don't know how much milk it was with,
It was in the same
or
day.
if it was used with the meat and now it's been used with milk.
Yeah, but I don't know
I'm
that
just
kind of
saying,
situation yet.
So the only time when I can say
Yeah.
if I know the kazait, it helps me, it's only under the condition it's a new spoon or it wasn't used 24-hour period other than for the milk.
Right, and that's how it reads
And
from the
all other
mechaber.
case, in all other cases, if any of these conditions aren't fulfilled, in all other cases I need 60 against the spoon. Now, why does he say here against the whole spoon and not the spoon?
I'm talking about the part of the
Oh.
spoon. Yeah, it's the part of the spoon that went in.
So that's what he means here?
Yeah, that's what he means here.
When he
He,
says
he-
the
oh,
part
he
of
always
the
meant it. He doesn't hold cham mitzvah cham kuloi. He's told that to us in Basar b'cholav and here. I'm gonna only figure out against the amount of spoon. It could be a long spoon too. The amount that went into the food.
Even in 5, when he says the entire spoon, does the spoon it was
Not necessarily. It's however amount
You're
of the
saying
spoon went in.
That's
It's
not the whole, so he's not saying the whole spoon. He's just
not
saying the
necessarily, sure.
part. No, you say not necessarily.
It depends how much of the spoon went in. He told us halacha that before.
The part that went in is what happens.
That's what he told us in Dalet and in Tzadik Dalet. We always figure the amount that went in. The problem is not everybody remembers how much of the spoon went in.
it's very
That's the problem. But if you know that too, that's all you need. All
We're
right.
always talking about how much you have to babatel the spoon. We're always worrying about babateling the spoon pot. That's what you're saying.
Right. Anyway, so if you read the mechaber, simple, without any notes, any meforshim, everything makes sense. All of a sudden comes this Ramah and adds aval kaf on the words of aval kaf yishana. If it's an old spoon, what does that mean? It's been used more than once. It has many blias, perhaps. Ubas yoman, of course, it was within the last 24 hours. Then mesharim bikulo, you have no choice because you have many blias. It's yishana. Then he says, you know why mesharim bikulo? You know why? The kol mashebola nasa isur. Everything that was absorbed became an isur. Lo yadino, and we don't know kama bola. What does this have to do with the price of cheese in China?
Not too much, but...
The kol mashebola nasa isur. I'm talking about a dairy spoon. It was used numerous times for dairy. It's a kaf yeshana. It's still heter. It's not asur. It can't become asur.
No, but isn't it that he was inserted?
No, it doesn't mean that. It does not mean that.
He doesn't mean it becomes a
It does not mean that.
You're saying it becomes a kanan.
Yes, that's what he's implying that. But I said, well, wait a minute. I haven't. Why bring in Hanan? You know why you need Misharim Keneg Kulo? Because you said it yourself. Lo yadinon kama bala. You said it yourself. The Ramah says it. It's clear. The first case, I know a kazayis. In the second case, it's used numerous times. I don't know how many blias. Why does the Ramah, or why does the Beis Yosef, if you really want to get confused, don't read just the Mechaber Ramah, read the Beis Yosef. The Beis Yosef says, you know what? If it's a Kaf Yeshana, you have a Hanan problem here. Hanan? I don't have Hanan. I have many blias, and that is why I need to figure out the whole thing. Why say Hanan? Hanan doesn't help me here. Even without Hanan, I need to figure out against the whole spoon. Even without Hanan. Hanan doesn't exist. You told me the first case.
The Beis Yosef the mechaber. So Beis Yosef
Yes.
is saying that what you're saying then is my opinion. Is
Because there are
what the mechaber means.
Yeah.
Because that's the Beis Yosef.
Right, but if you read the Mechaber simple, without knowing
You're saying
anything,
it's okay.
you understand the Mechaber. The Mechaber says, you know what, in the first case you know it's a kazais, great. The second case you use it many times, you have more than a kazais. So guess what? You need 60 against the whole spoon, whatever went in. Simple. Ka'aval kaf yeshona ubas yom misharim bekulo. Comes along the Ramah, who explains the words of the Mechaber based on the Beis Yosef. By the way, you know the Ramah has a pirush on the Torah too called Darchei Moshe. He has another called Torah's Chatas. If you really want to understand what's going on over here, it pays to learn the Taz and the Darchei Moshe, especially the Darchei Moshe, because the Darchei Moshe has the same question, same puzzle that I had, when first learning it, trying to make sense of everything. What? The Kol Ma Shebalo Nase Iser, and now I have to figure against the whole Iser? In other words, Hanan. I know there's such a thing as Hanan, but what does Hanan have to do with our case? A dairy spoon that was used numerous times simply has many blias, and I need 60 against the whole thing because I don't know how many they are. In the first case, you tell me, I'm lucky. I know there's only kazayas because it was used once today. In the second case, I don't know how many blias there are because it was used more than once.
I would have said Hanan,
All of a sudden, there's Hanan here. What does Hanan have to do with this?
You say Elon's case, it doesn't become a just from Basar Bechalav, where it gets done, doesn't become a Hanan.
No,
That's the case.
exactly.
It's the same case,
It's
though,
not.
really.
Anytime you stick in a spoon once, you need 60, and it's dairy and you have meat, you need 60 times against the milk.
I remember that.
Or 60 times the spoon. Nothing about Hanan.
If you have 60, then it never becomes Hanan, of course.
Okay?
As long as the
Oh,
spoon
that's
remains
what it was.
connected.
That's what it was. You had 60 the first time, so it did Hanan. That's
As long
what
as
it
the
was.
spoon remains
Then the
connected
second time it went in,
to...
it became Hanan because you were afraid.
But only as long as the spoon remains connected to the contents of the pot. But as soon as the spoon is separated from the contents, while it is still in the airspace of the pot, then the absorptions of the meat in the spoon become Hanan, even if there is 60. But if
But it does not affect the pot mixture right now.
No, but that's because you have 60.
Exactly.
Sure.
Okay.
You have 60.
So he's worried about the set.
No.
He's worried about the spoon, take it out.
No, you don't, even if you don't have 60. The Hanan only becomes a problem after you've removed the spoon from the pot.
Why would it then become?
Then
Because it's
the blias in the spoon that have dairy and meat have rendered that spoon Hanan.
Well, no, have they became Hanan?
They have become Hanan.
Yeah, but why? But why? Because they no longer have 60.
That's why they say 60 twice. You need the first time.
Right, in the case of Kaf Cholev is twice. Exactly. Exactly. Because of that, the second time you need 60 against the whole thing.
Yeah, but we didn't learn, I recall. That
Now, against what do you need 60 times? By the way, against what do you need 60 times? If you say Hanan, against what do you need? You say Hanan, what do you have Hanan there?
you have, right.
Whatever part of the spoon.
They were afraid a little bit was left or something from that when you when you took it out. There was a little, it wasn't bottled or something.
No, once it's separated from the contents, it has absorptions from the meat that are not 60 in the spoon.
You take it out.
And you're taking it out, it becomes separated from the contents. It's no longer touching the spoon or the roited. So at the moment it's separated, there's no longer 60 against the milk. But there is meat absorptions in the spoon. These meat absorptions are not 60 against the milk absorptions. The two together become Hanan.
And now you have a new Isser. And now you have a new Isser in that spoon called Hanan that you need to consider in your situation, that you have to have 60 against that amount. You may have it, or you may not. But that's a brand new Isser now.
So let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
The reason I never had your question here with respect to was because I was anyway under the impression that the meat spoon.
Why would you think so?
Because it had.
When did we have a meat spoon here?
Because it's been used right now to stir. So I would have thought that it was a meat spoon that was erroneously used for milk.
Oh, I see.
And
Okay.
it had been used in the day before for meat. So now the meat that it absorbed during the day became Hanan when it was put into the milk.
Okay.
So now when the spoon is put into the meat again.
That's the way the Bes Yosef learns in the Tur and in the Rashba. The one, I don't want to use the word fault here, but the one who really is to blame, if I can say, Mechilas Kevoida, asking forgiveness here, the one who really made these things very complex, this halacha, is the Rashba. He is the makor of the Tur. Mechaber takes it from the Tur takes it from the Rashba. Okay? And Bes Yosef says on the Tur, let me quote to you the words of the Rashba on this. This is where the Tur takes it from. If you look at the words of the Tur is so simple. And the Tur has nothing to, there's no Hanan, there's no nothing. That is why,
But what's the Torah exactly saying?
if you ever have the opportunity to read the Tur, you will understand what I mean. What makes this mechaber easy and pashut to understand is if you read the Torah, and Muhammad takes you in the Torah. What made it difficult is if you read the Beis Yosef, if you read the Ramah's explanation of the Mechaber, because the Mechaber and the Beis Yosef talk about Hanan over here. And the Mechaber's plain words, not what he says in the Beis Yosef, and the Torah plain words do not mention any Hanan. They mention either one time inserting, and you had a bli of a kazais, or you've used it for many, many times, and therefore there are numerous blias. If I have numerous blias, then I don't have that advantage of 60 against the kazais. I have 60 against the entire thing. All of a sudden, I hear there's Hanan here. What does Hanan have to do with it? I don't need Hanan. Yeah, but here we're talking about Basar b'cholov. So he is going. All right. Okay. So I just wanted to introduce to you. I thought we would. I thought we would. No. We'll just finish this because I thought we were going to be able to go a little bit further, but we'll leave that for Thursday. It's okay. Just to understand the Mechaber, it's complex. But what made it complicated was that the source of this halacha comes from the Rashba. The way that if you I went ahead and I read, I had to go to the Shoresh, I had to go to the Makor, I had to read the Torah Sabayis for myself. Why does the Beis Yosef? I've never come across a situation with the Beis Yosef. Didn't make sense to me. How could you say this? How could you talk about Hanan here when you're taking the halacha from the Torah? And the Torah doesn't say anything about that. The Torah actually is very simple. Just the way you made it simple in the Shulchan Aruch. You didn't say anything about Hanan. It's just the Ramah adds those words in parentheses.
So how do you explain that?
So why does the Beis Yosef talk about Hanan here? Because he's saying that the Mekor of the halacha of the Torah, which I'm quoting from, comes from the Rashba. And then he quotes the Zele Shoina. This is the language of the Rashba. He quotes it word for word.
The Torah does?
No, the Beis Yosef. The Torah does not quote it word for word. That's the thing. The Torah has a nice halacha without everything that the Rashba says. And the Torah's halacha is similar to this halacha. Very similar. If you read the Torah, you read the Mechaber, there's no mention of Hanan. There's no reason to believe there's a problem of Hanan here. All I want to know is, does it have one blia of kazais? Or if it was used numerous times, I don't know how many blias there are, I need 60 against the whole thing. Great! That's a simple halacha. Now, then he tells me in parentheses here, the kol mashebola nase isur.
So basically you're saying that that's not what it is. He's saying the Torah is getting from the Rashba, so that's how...
So there's some issue of Hanan over here, exactly. So I wasn't happy with what the Beis Yosef was saying, so I went to the Torah Sabayis to search, word for word, what does the Rashba have in mind here? What kind of a halacha is this? I don't need Hanan. Even without Hanan. Everybody understands Hanan would make the whole thing is. Okay. Therefore, I need against the whole thing. Okay, the whole thing is Asr. Wait a minute, but I don't need Hanan. If this spoon was used many times, I need 60 times against all the blias of dairy of milk that was used. That's all. Why tell me Hanan? And that, by the way, everybody would agree with that.
Sure.
Everybody would. So why is the Hanan here? So the Beis Yosef says, because these words are taken from the Raj. This halacha is taken from the Raj. Okay, great. So it's the Rajba's fault. So what's the halacha? So what's going on over here? So basically this is what happens. The way the Beis Yosef reads the halacha of the Torah, based on the Mekor of the Rashba, is like this. This is not a dairy spoon. This is a meat spoon. This is really a meat spoon that was used once with dairy or more than once with dairy. Oh, once you have meat and dairy, then you either have Hanan or not. No? Yeah. There's a chiddush here. Because if all you have is a kazais cholov, kazais cholov, even though you have a mixture of meat and dairy, guess what? I'm going to give you a chiddush. There's some that will allow you to calculate against just the kazais cholov, and there's no Hanan. Right. Why? Because later on we'll learn, Thursday, that some say there's no Hanan in Blias.
Right.
Some say there's no Hanan in Blias.
So that's what they read.
Exactly. According to the ones who say there is Hanan in Blias, once is once. But if you have more than once, which is the second scenario, then of course if this is the meat spoon that was inserted in dairy, right, more than once, right, it's going to be a problem. The only advantage I have when it's not more than once is that I may be able to use that calculation of shishim against the original kazayis of cholav.
Because I know how much there is.
Because I know how much there is. But really, does that make it... If it's Hanan, it's not a problem? No. It's not a problem. If I know the exact amount. Even if it's Hanan.
But only according to the opinion of Hanan by Blias,
Yeah,
as you
right,
said.
right, yeah.
So by according to the opinion of those that there is Hanan by Blias, then knowing that there was a Kazais would know. Is that correct?
That's what we're going to have to see. Right?
Wait,
The various opinions.
There has to be no Hanan against Kazayas.
That's what we're going to see. We're going to see. We're going to see. You should have a whole chart. You may have there's a nice chart out there. The chart is actually, they did a good job in the chart of telling us the various shitas of, do we say Hanan in Blias, and do we say Hanan in the Keli itself, which not everybody's in agreement with. The vast majority of persons say there is none. Right. But we need to know that because that is relevant to the Ramah. See, whether do we say Hanan in a Keli or not? In the Keli itself, right? As the metal, the walls of the Kelim, not the Blias itself.
This is why the whole thing was difficult to understand, because Hanan
was always the food itself.
In the food itself.
Right.
Here it's extending in the absorption, it's extending the walls of the pot, and the issues.
Yeah. And there is a difference between, we're going to see there's going to be a difference between what kind of a pot it is. Is it metal, wood, or is it clay cheres? Ligab Hanan or not?
Now, last thing, we're assuming, again, I get confused with the meat. Let's say the old spoon means there are times, and then it's
right.
the meat once. We're assuming that there isn't 60 in the meat against the spoon.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if there was 60 in the meat against the spoon...
One more time? There was...
What do I say? The dairy spoon is dunked in the dairy a number of times.
Right.
Okay, then it gets dunked one time. It's Hanan.
Yeah, because there was no
But
bitul.
we're assuming there was not shishim.
Right, there was no bitul. Sure. You have to. Yeah.
But then going back to the earlier point, I'm sorry to do this.
Right.
But going back to the earlier, we saw Basar b'challah with the spoon and coming out and going in again. You're holding that there isn't any Hanan in that case.
Yes, he did that, but the second time he holds there is.
Yes.
Yes, but here,
when you in spoon
the second time
into the pot a second, then you have. Then by then you already have.
Yeah, but I'm
Once
concerned
it was
about the
removed.
first time.
Once it was
This is
removed.
like the first time.
Yeah, the first time.
There's no case in the first.
If there
This
is
could be like
60,
the first case.
if there is 60, if there is 60, then it should show that there is no Hanan on the spoon.
Yeah, but gotcha.
It's never an issue. So the main
But
difference
not-
here,
That's what I'm talking
the
about.
main difference, as we will see, let's leave it for Thursday, is the Rashba and the Ramban. The Ramban says, figure out shishim against the kazais. There's no Hanan in the Blias.
No,
Okay.
no Hanan.
Sure.
Okay.
That's what we're going to see is going to make the main difference in the Mechaber's words, according to the way he learns in the Beis Yosef. According to the Pashut Pshat, you don't need Hanan to understand the Pashut Halacha, that if you have many blias of dairy in the spoon, that you can't mishmashah against the kazais. But obviously there's a new Halacha here taken from the Rashba, that we're talking about a meat spoon, not a dairy spoon, that was used once or more in dairy, and now it's being used again in the meat. No, if that's the case, meat into dairy, then back into meat, then you have Hanan. Then you have to consider the possibility of Hanan. So,
According to the ones that hold Hanan by Blias.
yes. All right.